like the dead body in the hands of those who are washing the body. You know, the dead body, it has no will. The people washing the body turn it, they wash this side, they turn the other side, they wash it. That we should be with our sheikh like the dead body in the hands of those who are washing the body. But this is a mistaken understanding, because neither is our sheikh or our peer or whatever equivalent to Khidr, who was receiving revelation from Allah, nor are we equivalent to Prophet Musa, a prophet of Allah. So that analogy is totally irrelevant, is totally in error. That's the wrong analysis from it. The correct analysis is that behind calamities is good. The breaking of the boat, of course, when Khidr broke the boat started to sink. The owner of the boat would have said, why? Khidr, why did you do this? Just like Musa said, why did you do this? You know, he would have felt very bad, his boat is broken. But then the king came down the river and was snatching everybody's boat, didn't take his boat because it was damaged. He said, alhamdulillah, mashallah. He could see the end results right away, shortly thereafter. The other example of killing of the boy, right? Relative to the parents of that boy, their child was murdered. Khidr murdered the boy. That's what they could see. They could see their child was murdered. Of course, Khidr informed Musa and informed us that based on revelation from Allah, he knew, and based on Allah's instructions, he knew that that boy was going to grow up. His parents were righteous, and that boy was going to grow up and be a fitna for the parents to such a degree that they would have themselves fallen into kufr. So to protect them from the evil of the boy, which wasn't as evident at the time, he was only 10 or 12 years old. I mean, what was to come, you couldn't see it. He was just an innocent child. Allah took his life. Now for the parents, of course, Allah gave them another child, a girl. And this girl was righteous. And of course they would have appreciated their daughter. But they would have remained in their hearts until they died a sadness for the loss of their son. Isn't it? Their murdered son. They would still feel that loss. But of course on the day of judgment, when Allah judges things and explains to them, then they will realize that that loss, that which they thought was a loss, was a gain. You see? And that's the difference between the two. That is, comes out of that story. The story of Musa and Khidr. That there are certain things which will happen in our lives. We may have difficulty in understanding what is the rhyme and the reason behind these things. We can't see any. So the tendency for us is to say, this is bad. And why Allah? Why did you do this? We start to question Allah. And this is, if you listen to the atheists, the leading atheists, people like Hawkins, right? J. Hawkins, the leading physicist who is all-time atheist, written books on time and how the world has no beginning, etc. If you listen to him, in the midst of all his atheist claims and statements, you will hear this little voice crying out, saying, why am I like this? Because he is a quadriplegic, in a wheelchair, twisted, he can't even hardly speak. And this happened to him in his 20s. He was fine. He grew up a young person. Then he had this debilitating disease which reduced him to a cripple, being pushed around in a wheelchair. He has this massive brain, but physically he is in the worst of shape. So in what you hear crying out from him is, God, why did you do this to me? If there is a God, there is no reason for this to have been done to me. This is unfair. There are so many other people in the world. He visited India, he saw all these, 1 billion Indians there. The vast majority of them are not contributing what he is contributing, as far as he sees it. they're healthy. And here is he with all this knowledge, and he's benefiting humankind, and he's in this shape. Why? Why me? There can't possibly be a God, because of his inability to deal with tragedy, calamity. He cannot understand the good behind it. So therefore he ends up denying God's existence. And this is common. If you listen to most of the people who disbelieve, who deny God's existence, usually you'll hear this in their statements. I had an aunt when I was 8 years old. She was such a nice aunt. She was so kind to us. Then she had a car accident and died. Why? What did she do to deserve that? You see, from that comes disbelief in God. So, the principle of rububiyyah, understanding the creation of everything which exists, this gives us the foundation for understanding tragedy in life. To be able to recognize that there is good behind it all, even though we may not be able to perceive it. So, out of this comes obviously trust in God. Once one has that knowledge to realize that behind all of these things is good, then we are able to put our trust in God. Whatever happens in our lives, we realize that he is the one who controls it all, and it is ultimately for our benefit. The other point which comes out of recognizing Allah's dominion over all things, that he is the creator and sustainer of everything, is that there is no room in this understanding of Allah for amulets and charms and omens and all these other things connected that people commonly depend on to protect them from evil and to bring good to them, right? And this includes all of the charms and amulets. Whether a person uses a stone or a flower or a four-leaf clover or a rabbit's foot or whatever they use, or they use the Quran, where they produce a Quran which is 1 inch by 1 inch, not intended for reading, because you must have a microscope to be able to read what is written on the pages, so they didn't intend reading, but so that it will be put in a locket, worn around your neck, hung in your car, or whatever, in order to bring barakah, to protect you from evil. This is also in the category of amulets and charms. And the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever wears an amulet has committed shirk. Whoever wears an amulet has committed shirk. And he stated that on a circumstance where he was taking the oath of allegiance from a group of the companions, and he took it from everybody except one individual. And so they asked him, why didn't you take the oath from this individual? He said, because he's wearing a charm. At that point he went inside of his cloak, took it out, tore it and threw it. Then he took the oath of allegiance from him, and he said, whoever wears an amulet has committed shirk. So this is a general statement which covers all forms of amulets. So basically, when we speak of Tawheed of Rububiyyah, we're talking about Allah's dominion over all things. Nothing takes place in the creation except by his permission. Whatever we perceive as being evil, there is good behind it. It is a part and parcel of Allah's creation. And because of the fact that he has dominion over all things, then to depend on anything besides him to protect us from evil or to bring good, we are in fact destroying this principle of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Now the second category, Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, or maintaining the unity of Allah's names and attributes, this category may be understood from 5 perspectives. The first one is understanding Allah's names and His attributes, according to how Allah and His Messenger have described Him, first and foremost. Our understanding of God is based on revelation. Allah revealed Himself to us through revelation in order that we would have the correct concept of who He is. If we rely on our brains, our minds, to understand God, then we end up like the Hindus with so many different idols, etc., or the Buddhists believing that our spirits become gods when you reach the highest level of spiritual journey, or the variety of other systems that are out there where Allah is in one way or another perceived through His creation. So in order to protect us from falling into that misunderstanding, Allah revealed descriptions of Himself in revelation, coming in the scriptures as well as in the explanations of the prophets. And this is the basis by which we understand Allah, first and foremost, as Allah and His Messenger have described Him. Secondly, we maintain that position without adding any new names and attributes to Allah, which have not been mentioned by Himself, which though may be found in some of the things which He did, but He didn't take these terms as names for Himself. For example, the name Rashid or Nasir. You have people called Abdul Rashid and Abdul Nasir, Jamal Abdul Nasir, obviously the former ruler of Egypt. Now Allah does not describe Himself in the Sunnah as An-Nasir or Ar-Rashid. So as on the basis of that, it is incorrect to describe Allah in that way. Though the meanings is not bad, but because of the fact that Allah did not use these terms, we do not do it. And this is in keeping with the principle of avoiding innovation in the religion. Now there are some lists of Allah's names and attributes which can be found in Qurans printed in Pakistan. In the back page you'll find 99 names. None of these lists are authentic. None of the lists are authentic. There are weak hadiths found in Sunan Abi Dawood and At-Tirmidhi, but they are not authentic. So those lists are not authentic in and of themselves. What one needs to do is to see any of the books which are written on the names and attributes of Allah, where they present authentic narrations or hadiths to confirm, or verse from the Quran to confirm each and every name. That is the correct way to approach it. Thirdly, when we describe Allah, we do so without giving Him the attributes of His creation. That is, where Allah describes Himself in one way, we do not attribute to Him things which would make Him like His creation. For example, we